Hello everyone, Alex here, and today I'll be giving you an in-depth view on how to use Simplify 3D. Now, if you've used some 3D printing softwares before, in our lab you've probably either used MakerBot Desktop or MakerBot Print. Simplify 3D is very similar, except this software has so many more features that you can't use on the other, or that the other softwares don't have. Upon opening the software, it may look very similar. You have a build plate and some options. To navigate this build plate, the left click on your mouse moves the build plate in 3 dimensions. The right click moves the build plate in 2 dimensions. The scroll wheel scrolls in and out. And pressing the scroll wheel actually returns the build plate to an isometric view. Now with Simplify 3D, the first thing that's very important to do is load in the presets for the printer you'll be using. In the MakerBot Desktop and MakerBot Print softwares, those are very specific to MakerBot, and they already have all the presets for those printers loaded into them. Simplify 3D is a very generic slicing software that can be used for just about any available printer on the market. So what we're going to do, you can do this 2 ways. The first way is you can go over to the Help tab and go over to Configuration Assistant. This will give you a list of all the presets for every printer available, but if you already have the preset for the specific printer that you're going to be using, you can load it in manually by going to File and Import FFF file. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to import the FFF file for the MakerBot Replicator 2. This says it's been imported successfully. And what we can do from here is we can go into Edit Process Settings. And this is what it should pop up with it originally. I had the advanced options shown, and I'll get to that later. And what we can do is we can go to Select Profile right here, and we can go from Default to the MakerBot Replicator 2 that I've imported. This should change your build plate to whichever size of the printer that you have. I already had it set for the MakerBot Replicator 2, so it's already the correct size. So, let's load in some parts. I've made 2 parts for the example of this video that I can demonstrate. So there's 2 ways of loading parts. You can go to File, Import Models, and you can import off the desktop. Or, let's delete this. That was simply the delete key on the keyboard. You can simply drag and drop. Alright, so this part is very large. So there are a few ways we can edit these parts. Over on the right hand side here we have a list of options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click the part to bring up extra options. This gives you your offsets, your scaling, and your rotation. So since this is a bridge, I'm going to change the, what would it be? Rotate it around the x-axis -90 degrees to point it upward. Now you see that it's going through the build plate here because it's rotating around the axis. What we can do is we can click Center and Arrange to put it back on the top of the build plate. Alright, now what I'm going to do is double click again to bring up this list of options. Now you might be wondering how I can actually move the part without just moving the build plate around. What we can do is if we go over here to the Translate, we can actually grab the part and move it around the build plate without the build plate moving in 3-dimensional space. But we can also click outside the build plate to move it around. See the difference there? If we double click the part again, we can get this window back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it way down because it's a very large part, so I'm going to go 50%. And this will auto scale all of them if you have uniform scaling checked. Alright. Perfect. So from here, this looks pretty good. I'm going to move it off to the side so I can import another part. Import models, overhang. This is also very large, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the -90 degrees to rotate it upwards. Center and Arrange, and I'm going to also scale this down to 50% size. Then I'm going to move them side by side so I can better see them for this example. Perfect. So I have these parts designed so I can display the incredible support material features in Simplify 3D. Okay. So from here, other buttons on the right side, we have the Rotate. You can rotate a model along its axis freely without having to enter in some specific number. You have other kind of view models. Oh, I skipped this one. You can scale it by hand if you don't want to do that. through the manual window. That's fine. I don't really care at this point. So this is the default view, top view, front view, right view. But I'm going to keep it in isometric for now. This toggles the origin on and off. This shows any solid models, wireframes. What's this one? This one is the, oh, okay, those are the normals. These are, so if you need a cross section, you can see any cross section views, select the axis you want to see through, slide the scrollers to see through that axis, and then just exit out of that. Perfect. So from there, what we're going to do is I'm going to go down into the edit process settings and click show advanced. So this is quite a powerful window, and let me explain why. I'm just going to go through it tab by tab. The first tab we have on the bottom half. I'm only going to go through the bottom half. The top half is more if you just want like a quick thing. I'm going to go in depth, so I'm going to go through the bottom half. A lot of these presets should already be set correctly to whatever printer you're using if you have the correct preset loaded into it. For example, things like the nozzle diameter should be about set. Your retraction speeds, this is for when you have stringing problems. You should increase your retraction speeds if you're having stringing problems. If you don't know what that is, that's basically when the printer moves from a part to another part, if it pulls the filament back into the nozzle a little bit so that it's not connecting those two parts accidentally, and that's what stringing is. And so if you pull it further back, it has a less opportunity to accidentally connect those two parts with like one layer or one strand of filament, which is very annoying if it keeps building up. Okay, going over to the layers. Primary layer height should be set. The top solid, the top, bottom, and outline perimeter shells, those are your shells essentially that you've seen in MakerBot Desktop and MakerBot Print. But in Simplify 3D, you have the option to change each one of them as opposed to just one option for the shells. So the top layers is different from the bottom layers, which is different from the outline and perimeter shells. If that doesn't make sense, basically as it's going, it prints a number of thick 100% infill layers before it actually gets to the infill, and same for the sides and same for the top. There's some layers of thickness, and that's what shells are. And so you can individually customize those in this software. From there, the rest of it should be preset for the printer you're using. Additions, this is really, really important. I always like to use a skirt just to make sure that before it actually starts printing your part, that the filament is going to stick to the build plate and it's not either too high or too close to the build plate. If you don't know what a skirt is, it just does a kind of ring around your part. The skirt on MakerBot Desktop and MakerBot Print is just that one line that it goes across in the front of the build plate before it goes. It doesn't actually go around the part. Rafts are good for when your build plate isn't necessarily completely sticky or if it's not very flat. But what I do recommend for your rafts for Simplify 3D, it defaults the raft separation to 0.14, and you should change that to 0.3 or 0.29 or 0.31. One of those three options is pretty good. I really also recommend doing 100% raft infill, just so the raft sticks together better. I personally really don't like using rafts in Simplify 3D. That's what I feel is one of the main drawbacks in Simplify 3D, solely because the raft configuration and the raft, how it puts the rafts together is not very removing friendly. It takes a little bit of effort to get the rafts off, as opposed to rafts printed from the MakerBot Print software, which are much easier to remove. But I digress. Infill. You can slide the infill percentage with this slider. You don't really have to mess with much on this window. But if you want to change your angle offsets for the auto... Oh, no, that's for Sport Material. Never mind. Don't mess with that. Sport Material. So Sport Material is a fantastic... they have really revamped Sport Material in Simplify 3D. And I will show you exactly how that is. So... what we can do is I'm actually going to close out of this tab for a quick minute just to show you the incredible Support Material features. So if you go over here to the bottom button on the right, which I haven't talked about yet, customize support structures. You can click generate automatic support structures, and it will generate automatic support structures under anything that it thinks needs support structures, or things you just have selected. So based on what you tell it, so anything over 45 degrees is going to put support structures under, and anything I've selected. So if I select this one and I hit generate automatic supports, it'll fill in under that overhang here. So then I can also remove the existing support. Oh, that's for customs. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we can clear all supports from these models with this. And what we can actually do is we can add our own personal support structures. So if we click add new supports, we have this gray line that pops up on our window. And what we can do is if we zoom in here, we can manually, I still have scale selected. Let's deselect that. There we go. We can manually add support structures by ourselves wherever we feel we need them under a part. So if you have something that you feel doesn't need support or only needs minimal support, then this is a fantastic option. Also, what we can do is we can click remove existing supports, and we can manually click the supports that we want to remove. Perfect, perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to generate the automatic supports for that, because that's very nice. Now, I don't want supports for this one because I know the printer can bridge these two blocks. And I'm going to show you how you can actually make it so this one only has support and this one doesn't. And I'll show you that at the end of the video when I go into more process settings. So if we go back over to the support tab, we're going to click generate support material so that the support material actually shows up in our final product. Okay, so this all looks pretty good. This is all pretty custom set for the preset for your printer. Temperature, depending on what you're printing, you might want to change the temperature. So to do that, we're going to click this tab right here, remove the set point, change whatever set point you want, let's say 215C, and add the set point, and that's how you change the temperature right there. Cool. If you have a heated build plate, it should appear in this left side right here, just as another option, but the MakerBot Replicator 2s don't have heated build plates, so we're not going to worry about it. Cooling, again, should be preset for your printer as far as the fan speeds. G-code. This is very interesting. Most of this will be preset for your printer. Again, a lot of it's all preset if you use the right preset. But one thing that I like to make everyone aware of is the global G-code offsets. And this is really important if your printers aren't really reading the G-code from Simplify 3D correctly. And what I mean by that is even if you level your build plate, the codes that it could be giving it do slightly differ from the MakerBot desktop and print softwares. They shouldn't, but there's always a chance that they do. And so just to make sure, what I've seen over my personal experiences with our printers is that I like to make the Z-axis a little bit closer to the extruder heads so that there isn't as much of a gap between the extruder nozzle and the build plate. This will result, when it's too far, it'll result in very unstable prints because there's too much of a gap and it gives it a chance to curl before it actually hits the build plate. So you want it just extruding right onto the build plate. Again, this is something that you'll have to look at your printers when using this software so you can determine what your Z-axis offset should be. So I'm going to leave mine at negative 0.110. Negative for the Z-axis will make it closer and positive will make it further away. From there, going over to scripts. For X3Gs, which are the MakerBot Replicator 2s, and anything else that reads SD cards, you want to make sure that you have the X3G file selected for an export file format. For other MakerBots, for the 5th generation, you can select this, or anything else that reads specific file softwares, you'll need to select that for your printer. If your printer just reads standard G-code, great, good for you. And for the X3Gs only, they can play celebration songs at the end of their print, which is fun. Going over to other, we have print speeds. Print speeds are important if you're trying to print certain things. Printing things at lower print speeds will oftentimes be useful if you're trying to print something that maybe isn't stable, or you need to cool faster, or whatever. One thing to keep in note, that the print speeds are actually measured in millimeters per minute, not millimeters per second. In the MakerBot print softwares, MakerBot Print and MakerBot Desktop, they are measured in millimeters per second, so you'll need to do some converting from millimeters per minute to millimeters per second to edit this to what you really want. That's if you think in millimeters per second. If you think in millimeters per minute, great. Filament diameter, and again, this all should all be preset pretty well. If you're printing with PLA, you can also change what you're going to be printing with. We use pretty much PLA for the most part, so I'm just going to do that like that. Over to advanced, this all should be pretty much set. You can mess with it more if you want to, but I'm not going to mess with it that much. So back up here, what we can do with the top of this menu is if you make like a perfect preset for a perfect printer, you can actually save that preset as a new profile and say, let's see, perfect preset. Whoop, not present. Perfect preset. All right. So from there, we can also check or not check if we want to use a raft. I'm going to check it just for the sake of doing it. It's good to use a raft when you have a lot of support material on something, because the support material is very weak and it needs to really stick, or else it's not going to be very effective as support material. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of a problem and how we can fix it. So after you have everything set the way you want it, we can go prepare to print. What it's going to do is it's going to show us a lot of things here. It's going to show us the raft, the skirt, the parts, and the support material. Now notice that we only put support material under this part, but now it's also appearing under this part because this technically is an overhang. But we know we can bridge this if we want to. If you want support material under it, that's fine, but you should know how to do this, and I'll show you how to do it. How we can move or remove the support material out of the right brick. What we're going to do is we're going to exit the preview. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new process. Now in process 2, we can select the profile to be perfect preset. And this is exactly what you have on the other one. What we can do is we can go down to select models, and we can only select overhang. So we'll deselect, no, wait. We'll select the bridge and deselect the overhang, so that this is the only process setting affecting the bridge. What we're going to do is we're going to go over back to process 1, go to select models, and make it so the overhang is the only one being affected by this preset. Now over to process 2, which is the bridge, we can actually deselect the generate support material option. What this is going to do is it's going to deselect this, or it's going to remove all the support material because it's being affected by a different process. What we can also do with this differing process kind of deal is we can change infill percentages from part to part on the build plate, which is absolutely incredible. Other things we can do, we can change anything. We can change anything. We can change how far the skirt is away from the part. We can change how far the raft is away from the part. We can change the separation distance. We can change the raft. And we can do anything we want to this other part. And if we go prepare to print, we have to select. It'll give us an option on what to use. And we're going to select all to really make sure that all those processes are being applied to all the parts. If we hit OK, so this is asking us if the process 2, no, we do not support material on that one. Perfect. So what this has done is this has done exactly what we wanted to. We kept the support material on this one. We removed it from this one simply because 2 processes are acting on different parts. You can have as many processes as you want. You just have to make sure that you specify which part is receiving which process and include all the processes in the final export. You can have up to infinitely number of many processes, however many things you can fit on the build plate. from here, you can either print over USB if your printer is connected to your computer. And if your printer is connected to computer, you can go over to this machine control panel and you can click connect, and it should connect you to your printer and you can begin printing over USB. If it's not connecting, what you have to do is you have to go into your MakerBot desktop software and you have to disable the background service, and you go up to it's either the service or the tools tab, something on the top of the screen, click it and stop the background service, because while MakerBot desktop is controlling the printer, it is in full priority and Simplify 3D will not be able to override it to connect to the printer. Or you can click Save Toolpaths to Disk, and this will save your file as an X3G. We're going to save it to the desktop and be like test print, save, and this should export that. There we go, successfully exported to the desktop, and we can see right there. Perfect. So that is all you should need for Simplify 3D. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and thank you all so much for watching.